Test. Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, May 12th, 2025. I'll call this meeting to order. My name is Todd Kasenberg and I serve as mayor in the community. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome and greetings are extended to councillors, staff delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. To those who are viewing this meeting via YouTube, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live and archived videos. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances when the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. We have regrets tonight from Deputy Mayor Kellum, who is traveling. Let us move to item 5 on our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council have full lives with engagement in their community. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest and in so doing avoid direct involvement in the consideration or voting on the item. I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already done so or declared so in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point during the meeting when such interest is recognized. Colleagues, anyone wishing to make a declaration at this hour? Councillor Rothwell.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg, Council, members of the public, and staff. I'll be declaring on our closed meeting session of pecuniary interest item 15, as well as the confirmatory bylaw. An organization that I volunteer with is part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Did I see your hand, Councillor Andreessen?
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council and members of the public. This evening I'll be declaring pecuniary interest on item 15 during the closed session meeting, as I'm involved in an organization that's involved in the discussions with this proposal, and also in item 17.1, the confirmatory bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else? I too will make a declaration for essentially the same purpose, and my reason is that and one of my employers has an interest in the matter that is being discussed in that closed session. So for me, it's item 15 and item 17.1 on the agenda. All right, we'll move forward then. And councillors, be assured, we've already impressed Councillor Duncan into service. He will lead that session of our closed session meeting. As chair of the meeting, I will manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely by web conference, and if they wish to speak, they can draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, I will advise and try to support by inviting our staff to help. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration related to the agenda as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for mover? Moved by Councillor Anstett, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 22 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Colleagues, anything to extract here or any corrections to the minutes you'd like noted? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so let's address the resolution prepared for us as follows. Consent items 7.1 to 7.22 be received for information, and the minutes of the April 29th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. At this time, it's proposed that we move to agenda item number 8. Our agenda indicates that we will hold a public meeting pertaining to a matter under the Planning Act related to a Listowel Ward official plan proposed amendment and accompanied by proposed zoning bylaw amendment. For the purpose of executing this public meeting, I used my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of the public meeting. We are now recessed for that purpose. Let's turn to the public meeting. To those in attendance, welcome to this public meeting of the council and for the community dealing with an application made under the Planning Act. This is a proposed amendment to the Listowel Ward official plan and to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with an application for Listowel Ward official plan amendment number 40 and application for zoning bylaw amendment number Z14-2024 by Patterson Planning Consultants on behalf of Stop 23 Auto Sales Limited for property legally described as Park Lot 10, Plan 182, Part 1 of 44R558, municipally known as 920 York Avenue North, Listowel. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance wishing to make comment concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make a verbal submission during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email, telephone, or by utilizing the public meeting sign-in sheet located at the back of the council chambers, giving their mailing address and telephone number. This time, I will call for a summary of this application. This will be offered by John Bice, who is a planner for the County of Perth. Welcome, Mr. Bice.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. So before you today are two applications, the first being for Listowel Ward Official Plan Amendment number 40, and the second being the Zoning Bylaw Amendment ZN 14-2024. The property is located at the red star on the slide. It's 920 York Avenue North. So the project proposal, the applications have been received for the Listowel Ward Official Plan and the Zoning Bylaw Amendment on behalf of Stop 23 Auto Sales, and that's to facilitate the development of a 4-bay automobile sales and service establishment. So the official plan designation, we're going to get into that, and the zoning as well. As you see on the left, top left corner there, the Listowel Ward Official Plan designates the property as residential currently. The proposed application for Listowel Ward Official Plan Amendment would remove the residential designation and instead, in its place, put a highway commercial designation. The zoning on the right-hand side, top right corner, the zone is future development -7. And the application is to remove that future development zone and replace it with a highway commercial special zone. The site-specific zoning will permit the establishment of the automobile sales and service establishment with reductions to the minimum lot area, frontage, front yard depth, interior side yard, and rear yard depth. The site is currently vacant and is currently used for overflow parking to support the neighboring business, hence the special future development -7 zone. The owners will also be required to obtain a site plan approval after the outcome of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendments. So the provincial planning statement, we'll get into that right here. The designation and zone change provides an opportunity for Stop 23 to meet the commercial needs of the growing residents that Listowel is seeing through the expansion of the automobile sales and service establishment. The PPS section 3.5 specifically talks about land use compatibility considerations to ensure compatibility between the proposed automobile service use and the surrounding residential uses. The applicant submitted a noise impact study. This was prepared by GHD Limited, and this was to analyze the noise potential generated by the proposed 4 service bays. The study concluded that predicted noise levels would exceed the applicable sound levels limits of the guideline. So that's just if we're looking at the specific numbers located in the red boxes. The sensitive receptors 1 and 2 were over the 50 decibels. So mitigation was recommended, so the study recommended mitigation by means of an acoustical barrier along the south edge of the property, sound performance specifications, and administrative controls implemented to comply with Ministry of Environment guidelines. So this is the mitigation. This is the noise study with the mitigation included. And as you can see by the red boxes, the sound limits are under the maximum requirements now. So as such, the following recommendations, as you can see on the slide there, will be addressed through the site plan control approval review to ensure the ongoing compatibility with the neighboring residential uses. I included this image in this slide just to show the separation currently between what's on the left-hand side, which would be the Stop 23 location, and then the right side being the townhouse, the residential townhouses. So the study concludes that the proposed facility is feasible and will operate within the MECP sound level limits at the nearby sensitive land uses, provided that the mitigation measures, as you see on the slide there, are implemented. Staff therefore consider the applications to be consistent with the provisions of the provincial planning statement. So the listable ward official plan outlines permitted uses within the highway commercial designation. And this specific section 7.4 includes an automobile service station as a permitted use. The proposed development will be municipally serviced through the reconstruction of York Street. The listable ward official plan requires that adequate landscaping and buffering shall be provided between new highway commercial uses and abutting residential uses. The proposed new highway commercial use is, as we see, adjacent to that residential townhouse development to the south. The noise barrier to be constructed to comply with the noise study will act as adequate buffering between these two uses. The listable ward official plan also directs that on-site drainage will be adequately controlled and must be established to the satisfaction of the municipality. The municipality's consultant engineer, BM Ross, have indicated that stormwater management and lot grading and drainage submissions will be a requirement of site plan approval, and staff are of the opinion that the listable ward official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment conform with the highway commercial designation in the listable ward official plan. So Perth County just recently passed their 2024 draft approved official plan, and this draft approved official plan designates the property, as you see on the slide, as corridor commercial and not the residential designation that currently exists in the listable ward official plan. So it's important to note that once the ministry offers up their final approval, this site will turn to corridor commercial. Corridor commercial is essentially very similar in nature to the highway commercial designation that we have currently in the listable ward official plan. Because minister's approval is up in the air and we're not sure when that will occur, the applicant has submitted that listable ward official plan amendment at this time to expedite development. So we want to get into a little bit of the zoning bylaw specifics as well. So in addition to applying for the listable ward official plan amendment, they've also applied for that zoning bylaw amendment, not only to change from future development to highway commercial, but to include about 5 site-specific reductions to the minimums of lot area, lot frontage, front yard depth, rear yard setback, and an interior side yard setback, as you can see on the slide there. This image just shows the frontage that currently exists along North Street. The image is taken looking to the north. One thing to note as well, the original zoning bylaw amendment application included a site-specific reduction to the front yard depth from 10.5 meters required to 3 meters. However, in consultation with the applicant and North Perth staff, the minimum front yard depth request has been changed from a 3 meter minimum up to a 4 meter minimum. So this image just shows the site-specific request. The blue image encircles the perimeter of the entire site. That's the lot area that needs to be reduced. So we'll go into that a little bit first. The minimum lot area here is 1,400 meters squared. The existing lot and the applicant has requested the reduction to 1,360 meters squared. So that's 40 meters squared reduction. Lot area minimum requirements are established to ensure that adequate space is available for the construction of buildings, lot grading and drainage, parking, and to ensure consistent built form with the neighborhood. The lot area minimum is also established to ensure development is able to maintain the subsequent setback requirements that exist for specific uses and buildings. The 40-meter square reduction is not anticipated to negatively impact these considerations, as the applicant has also included additional requests to reduce front, rear, and side yard setbacks. The lot frontage would be the yellow there on the slide along the road, York Avenue North. The minimum lot frontage requirement for the specific use in the C3 zone here would be 45 meters. The existing lot and the application requests a reduction to 44 meters, so that's a 1 meter reduction. The minimum lot frontage requirements for this type of use is intended to provide owners with enough space for parking and is intended to ensure adequate space again for the buildings and buffering from neighboring properties. The reduction by 1 meter is not considered, is not anticipated to negatively impact these considerations. Oops. Front yard depth, that would be the red line as you see on the screen there. Minimum front yard depth requirement for this use is 10.5 meters. The applicant has requested the reduction to 4 meters. Going back, the original request was to 3 meters, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, the current request is to reduce from 10.5 meters to 4 meters. The minimum front yard depth requirement is intended to ensure buildings are adequately set back from the municipal right-of-way for safety, sight lines, and to ensure municipal services and utilities can be adequately maintained. The applicant, again, had originally requested the 3 meters, but again, it's 4 meters now. I just wanted to really hit that home, so I'll try not to bring it up again. But essentially, this discussion came about because the North Perth Manager of Operations provided comment indicating that North Perth Public Works wouldn't support a front yard depth reduction to 3 meters. Instead, that they would support a reduction to 4 meters. Specifically, York Street contains a 15-meter road allowance, and this constrains the placement of underground infrastructure. The York Street storm sewer, for example, is located about 2.5 meters from the property line and at a depth of about 2 meters. So therefore, the North Perth Manager of Operations indicated that to safely repair the storm sewer in the future and not negatively undermine the new foundation of Stop 23's building, the building needed to be pushed back an extra meter. The applicant, again, has formally made that change, and no negative concerns are anticipated with that 4 meter for accessing the underground utilities. The interior side yard is the pink line there. The minimum side yard for this type of use in the C3 zone is 7.5 meters. The applicant has requested a reduction to 3 meters here, and that's specifically along the northern boundary line where the pink image is, or the pink line is, that is. The minimum side yard setback requirement is intended to ensure buildings are adequately set back from neighboring uses and to ensure that there's adequate lot grading and drainage. This 7.5 meter interior side yard setback is larger for this specific use, that being an automobile sales and service establishment, than other permitted uses in the C3 zone, such as service shop, home and automotive supply store, and printing establishment, to name a few. If these types of uses were proposed here, instead of the automobile sales and service establishment, the side yard setback requirement wouldn't be 7.5 meters, it would be 3 meters, and that's along the northern boundary. The northerly adjacent neighboring land use is an MTO service yard. So staff believe that the reduction to 3 meters here is compatible with that MTO service yard. Therefore, staff are satisfied with the reduction here. Similar to the side yard, we'll quickly go into the rear yard setback. Similar instances where, because this is an automobile sales and service establishment, the rear yard setback requirement is 6 meters. If other permitted uses in the C3 zone, like I had already mentioned, were to establish, that rear yard setback would be 4.5 meters, sorry. But because this is an automobile sales and service establishment, that setback requirement is a little bit greater. Staff believe that, again, the rear yard setback abutting the MTO service yard is a compatible use, and the reduction to 3 meters is adequate. So public notice was provided to neighboring property owners on April 21st. This is for both applications. No comments or concerns have been received from the public. Some comments were received from BM Ross and the North Perth Manager of Operations, as I already had alluded to. The MTO also provided a comment indicating that no MTO permits are required at this location. As such, the recommendation is for North Perth to adopt by bylaw the list of affordable official plan amendment number 40 and forward to Perth County Council for approval, and then for the zoning to approve in principle. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bice. Let me just check in with our clerk. No additional comments have been received at North Perth office.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, no additional correspondence has been received.
Thank you. All right. Let's turn our attention then to opportunity for the members of the public who have interest in this matter to make comment. First, we invite those who are in attendance who may be in favor of this application, other than the applicant, to come forward and provide their thoughts to council. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity? I'm not seeing anyone so indicating. Next, those opposed to the application may also have hearing at this public meeting. Anyone wishing to avail themselves of that opportunity? And we don't have anyone online who's registered for that purpose. Thank you. Next is the opportunity granted to the applicant or the applicant's agent to present in this public meeting. Does Mr. Patterson wish to do so?
Good evening, Council, Mayor Kasenberg. Scott Patterson here on behalf of Stop 23 Auto Sales, here in full support of the staff report and recommendation. I'd like to thank Mr. Robb and Mr. Bice for sitting down with me and just going through the front yard setback reduction. We did request a 3-meter setback. Through discussion, they explained the benefit of increasing that to 4 meters to facilitate the road reconstruction if it ever were to happen. That made total sense to me, and I was able to convey that back to the property owners, and we were able to come to this resolution before you tonight. So again, I'm here in full support of the staff report and recommendation. I'm here to answer any questions from council this evening.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. All right. I think at this point you can take a seat. I'll call you back if we need you. Colleagues, any questions or comments about this application? Councillor Andreessen, let's start with you.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I just want to direct this question to perhaps one of you who could answer it. I would just want clarification on where the sound barrier wall is going to be. If someone could share that with us. I'm kind of confused on that. Thanks.
Mr. Bice.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yes, the building orientation, so the north is to the, I guess, the bottom right. So the residential uses are to the top left. The noise barrier will be along the blue line on the top left corner, expanding 30 meters from the essentially the lot, where the lot starts near the street, to where it bisects the rear of the lot.
Thank you. The full side of it towards the housing development, correct?
Through you, Mayor, yes, the entire side yard.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks, John, for your report. I appreciated in your comments, you mentioned the new county official plan. The report itself didn't specifically mention it, so my question was, what's the new county official plan? So I was glad to see it's addressed there. I would hope that going forward, any applications that we would actually have those comments actually within the report. I think that would be helpful. That's the first point. And the second point, Mr. Mayor, can you just talk to us, John, about York Avenue and Mr. Patterson mentioned about the possibility of road reconstruction at some point. As I understand, York Avenue is maintained by the municipality now. At one point, it was a gravel surface. And clearly, this photo, I think, answers the question. But when we looked at the reports, the photos in the report, it showed it was a gravel road, and there was cars that were impeding on that road allowance. So I understand if you could just talk us through again, York Avenue seems to have been updated now in terms of curb and gutter and pavement. And I just want to make sure that now that it's more of a public use as opposed to just internally ferrying cars from stop 23 to this ancillary lot, that in fact there's no other vehicles that are going to be impeding the ability to use that road. So if you could just answer that. So thank you.
Sure. So through you, Mayor Kiesenberg, I guess I'll start by saying this: the development is subject to site plan approval. Matters pertaining to parking locations and things like that will all be addressed through that site plan approval process. To address maybe the reconstruction portion, I believe the storm sewer location was a little bit constrained by that 15-meter right of way. So it's located a little bit closer to that front lot line than perhaps typically would. So instead of 3 meters being set back for that building along the front, an additional meter was required to allow, if the storm sewer needed to be maintained and when the storm sewer needs to be maintained in the future, adequate space in order to do so. Am I going in the right direction with that question? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, anyone else? All right, I'm not seeing any expression of further interest and questions here. So notice of the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can first express appreciation to Mr. Bice. Thank you. And we can adjourn the public meeting. All right. I'm declaring that we have returned to our regular council meeting at this hour, and we have some resolutions to consider related to this matter from the planning meeting. First, as follows, we have a resolution that reads that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report dated May 12, 2025, entitled List Award OPA 40 and North Perth Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z 14-2024, which was submitted on behalf of Stop 23 Auto Sales affecting lands legally described as Part Park Lot 10, Plan 182, Part 1 of 44R 558 Listal Ward in the municipality of North Perth for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth acknowledges that a public meeting was held pursuant to Sections 22 and 34 of the Planning Act for the above noted applications. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Next relates to adoption. That North Perth Council adopts by bylaw List Award Official Plan Amendment number 40, and that North Perth Council forwards the List Award Official Plan Amendment number 40 to Perth County Council for approval. Can I call for a mover in this one? Councillor Duncan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And with Councillor Ansted's manual vote, that is carried. Thank you. Next up then is as follows, that North Perth Council approves in principle zoning bylaw amendment ZN 14-2024. Can I call for mover? Councillor Nordum, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Anstett records a manual in favor vote, and we have the 9 votes accounted for in this meeting. That is carried. Thank you. And I think this is for the next matter. I don't know. I think this is, I have another matter here. It's item number 9.1.1. I think that's later, right? Okay, thanks. All right. Thank you, colleagues. Let's move forward then to item 9 on our agenda. First, we're going to consider an item from the Development and Protective Services Department under 9.1 of our agenda. Item 9.1.1 invites council to grant an exemption from part lot control to O'Malley Homes for lands located in the Elma ward. This is usually done to allow lot line adjustments, including the creation of new lot lines in the parcel that is developed. County of Perth Planner Nathan Garland is with us to briefly explain and answer any questions. Mr. Garland, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaisenberg and members of North Perth Council. I'm here to present an application for a request for exemption from part lot control, P1 2025. It is on behalf of O'Malley Homes. The location is Block 72, Plan 44M74, and the location is 678 through 708 Ray Avenue South in Listowel. There's just an outline of the reference plans that has been submitted and deposited. It shows the 6 individual blocks with 4 easements for both drainage and right of access to the backyards along those blocks, just to give the folks access across the back there. So this will create 6 townhomes along this stretch that will be eventually separately conveyable parcels for individuals to own and purchase potentially. Just a site photo showing them under construction right now. One of the criteria typically is to have the part lot control exemption be implemented through the creation once they're being constructed, just so they can ensure that that's on the center line of those walls that are actually being constructed and going in there, so they're not off. So we do typically ask that they are under construction during this time. That's why you're seeing it come forward right now. Just for council's information and a reminder that part of the criteria for a part lot control exemption that it was previously approved as part of a plan of subdivision, so it has to be part of a plan of subdivision. It also has to conform with the existing zoning that's in place. Both of those criteria have been met. That's why we're bringing this application forward for council's consideration. Finally, it is my recommendation to council that North Perth Council approve the bylaw and that the approved bylaw be provided by the municipality of North Perth and registered on title. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Colleagues, questions or first comments on this matter? Okay, I have a resolution then for our consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the application submitted by O'Malley Homes Inc. for the exemption of part lot control on lands legally described as Block 72, Plan 44M74, Elma Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and that the approved bylaw be registered on title. I call for a mover on this from Councillor Johnston. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks, Nathan, for your report. If council is adopting this bylaw, is it not going through the county council, or have we revised that procedure now?
Through the mayor, it would be directed to the county planning director to sign off for final approval. So.
Okay, thank you. Procedural inquiry. And certainly, I think the actual bylaw comes later in our bylaws section. So we have one more crack at this a little bit later. All right, anyone else with discussion, debate, comments? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Garland, for joining us tonight. Let's consider 3 items from Corporate Services Department as item 9.2. Item 9.2.1, staff bring forward work that will help us define service levels that upon acceptance will be reflected in our forthcoming asset management plan, which is expected next month, according to the information I have. Asset Management Coordinator Leanne Marks has brought forward a report for our consideration. I know she's getting a little help from Mr. Mirabelli, who's in attendance tonight. So, Ms. Marks, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, and through you to members of council. Ontario Regulation 588-17 mandates that municipalities maintain comprehensive asset management plans. To date, North Perth has met all regulatory milestones and is currently developing its 2025 asset management plan to meet the July 1st deadline. The 2025 plan focuses on proposed levels of service, as well as life cycle and financial strategies. North Perth manages approximately $845 million worth of assets, of which most are in good or very good condition. The plan introduces forward-looking service level targets that will guide investment and planning for the next 10 years. While there are no immediate financial impacts, the final plan that will be presented at a later date will include a financial strategy addressing how to fund these levels of services. Hempson Consulting has been engaged to support this process and is here to present in greater detail the draft findings on the state of our local infrastructure and the proposed levels of service. I'd like to introduce Andrew from Hempson to present the draft findings.
All right, good evening, Mayor and members of council. Again, my name is Andrew Marbella, Associate Partner at Hempson. We were retained to do an update to the municipality's asset management plan, and today is really a council information session on the progress of that, with the forthcoming report coming in June prior to the July 1st deadline. So as Leanne had stated, the progress in the municipality in terms of the regulatory milestones kind of started back as part of the regulatory framework in July 1st of 2019 with the strategic asset management policy. Then following that, an asset management plan under what they call as an existing level of service framework had to be prepared for your core assets and then your non-core assets. The plan that was done back in 2019 effectively kind of was a bit more advanced and kind of stretched those two milestones. So to the point that we had all the existing service levels back in 2020 for all your assets. We are at the point now where we have to prepare under the proposed level of service framework, which is what we're looking at now for July 1 of 2025. Following this, although we've hit the majority of the milestones in the legislation, there is the one element that requires kind of annual updates or reporting update to the council to see how you're measuring against your targets, to how you're improving your plan, and you're kind of tagging along with your financial forecast. So that'll be required starting next year as part of your annual reports. So what's different with this legislation itself? So the proposed level of service is still required for all your assets, both core and non-core. And when we talk about core assets, it's the way the province requires the legislation around that. So your core is your water, your wastewater, roads, bridges, culverts, and stormwater infrastructure. So all your hard services is considered with that. Your non-core assets are everything that's remaining in the municipality. We have to identify proposed levels of service over the 10-year period for all municipal infrastructure. We have to look at what the life cycle requirements are, so all the life cycle activities. And when we think about life cycle activities, it's asset management related activities, so repair and replacement requirements, maintenance costs associated with your assets, anything that has to do with managing the infrastructure. And then we have to look at the costing side of it and the risks. So what are the costs in order to meet those proposed levels of services? And then what are the risks to the corporation if we don't meet those levels of services? So I'll get into some of the higher kind of overview of the results and the high end of the numbers here. So the overall value of municipal infrastructure in North Perth is around $850 million. And that is the cost to replace all your municipal infrastructure today. And you'll see that when you look at that value, we see your roads, your bridges, your buildings, the linear infrastructure of water and sewer comprising the largest share of that. And that's not dissimilar from what we would see in other municipalities. The value itself might come as a bit of a stark, reminder that you are responsible for a vast majority of infrastructure, and it is extremely expensive to put in place and replace. And we see how that value has changed since 2019, which is around $460 million. The value itself in 2019, that was what it cost to replace at that point in time. As we've seen since that time, municipal costs have escalated quite drastically. So inflation is playing a part of that. We've had better information since then. We have more data. So there's improvements along with, just better costing information associated with it. And that is the estimate as today. And I'm sure as we continue to refine the plan over the next couple of months and years, that value is going to change with it as well. So then we look at the overall condition of the assets, and overall the assets are in good condition. We see a large share of the assets in kind of that good to very good state, about 15% in fair condition. Notwithstanding the overall good condition, it's my job to also recognize that the assets, there are some in poor and very poor condition. Some of that's related to your roads and your PCIs associated with them. Although some of them are drivable, there are assets that have to be addressed as part of that portfolio. And part of this asset management plan is identifying those needs in order to maintain that service level over the longer period of time. The next slide provides a bit of a good breakdown of the conditions by asset category. We see here most of the roads themselves, again, are in good to very good. There are a portion of that, over 20%, that's in that poor to very good, poor state. Your buildings are all in very good condition as part of the BCAs that were done. Your bridges are kind of through the BCIs of your OSIM reports, which are large in part in good to very good condition. And then it's kind of a mix as we go through the rest of the categories. I do want to note that when you do see some of the very poors in some of the other categories, they're less reliant on engineered information. So we do use more what we call an age-based approach to them. So it's on the asset when it came into service relative to its useful life, and we assign a condition to it. Some of that's just going to be data oriented, and as we get better, you might get some more kind of inspection-based protocols around it, but some assets are going to be really hard to get inspection-based protocols for all of them, but that is a continued work in progress, not just for North Perth, but for all municipalities. So then we get into one of the key objectives of this is to look at our proposed level of services. And through this process, we've identified and restated what we call as the existing levels of service, our current level of service framework. We need to get to a target over the 10-year horizon where we feel the municipality needs to go. And then there's a series of adjustments that need to be made in order to get there. And we talked about what the life cycle activity changes, what the cost changes, implications might be, and then any risks. In order to meet a level of service, part of that is to understand that even if we're looking at maintaining the level of service, there's costs associated with that. And that's part of what we're going to show here today is that even though we're not making overhauls to your current framework, because things are, as you see, are in pretty good state, there's cost to maintain things in that pretty good state. So just to kind of go over the proposed level of service, and I won't spend too much time here. It was included in the staff report as more of a detailed technical table, but there's a couple of them that I want to highlight. And it doesn't come out as very good on the slide here, but it is in the presentation package. But nonetheless, the current PCI is around 65 for roads, and part of the requirements of the regulation, they give us some specific level of services that we need to match or track. And anything that has in the slide here that has ORIGHT 58817 here, it's one of the specific requirements of the regulation. So we're doing exactly what the province says in terms of which level of services we need to track. But for roads, we're not making any fundamental changes in terms of deviating from that pavement condition index. We're looking to generally maintain that PCI over the 10-year period. If the municipality were to look at increasing the PCIs over a longer term to, let's say, a 70 or 75, you'll see that in the modeling that we've done, there would be cost increases above what we're seeing in order to achieve that. And these are set to just maintain that current level of service. The bridges and the culverts are generally closer to a 70 through discussions with staff. Not too much of a requirement here to increase that beyond that current level, aside from doing your OSIM recommendations report, which will generally maintain that in that similar position. In terms of some of the other regulations or requirements here, we have just some samples from water and bridges and and buildings and facilities. On the water side of things, it's about improving our number of connection days at which we don't have service, our water boil advisory days. as well as our buildings and facilities, maintaining them in that kind of good to very good condition, which we're currently in. As indicated, because our condition framework and the position is fairly decent, not too much movement in terms of increasing beyond the level of service that we currently have over the forthcoming period. So as I mentioned, there's life cycle activities, and life cycle activities are about maintaining your assets and what needs to be done in order to maintain their capital assets. And we think about them in 6 different buckets. What we call the non-infrastructure solutions being one, are activities that you would do to maintain your assets without actually doing any capital work on them. So they're more studies related, asset management related, about coordinating efforts, but not actually doing a water main replacement, for example. Expansion activities, you're expanding your municipal infrastructure, you're building a new library, you're building new water mains or linear infrastructure, you're expanding your servicing capacity, but there's costs in order to do that, and there's long-term repair and replacement costs associated with it. Maintenance activities, these don't necessarily extend the life of an asset, but if you don't do them, the asset is likely going to fail earlier. So if you have a vehicle and you don't do your regular oil changes, your fluid changes, that vehicle is not going to last its useful life. So it's about doing those maintenance activities, which are already embedded in your municipal operating budget. Renewal and rehabilitation activities and replacement activities, these are your more traditional capital-related expenses. You're replacing your assets, you're resurfacing your roads, you're renewing your buildings. These are your more labor-intensive capital exercises. And then there's disposal activities. Once the asset is replaced, there might be a cost to dispose of that asset, which you have to consider. You see on the pie graph on the right looks at those different life cycle activities and what that need is over the 10-year period, which amounts to about $136 million. Most of that number is related to your replacement activities. Renewal is next, as well as your maintenance activities as well. So what we'll have here is we're going to have two scenarios that we'll talk about. The first one is being what we call as the 10-year benchmark funding gap. And we have our 10-year total life cycle needs, which was identified in the pie graph. It's $136 million over a 10-year period. On the right side of that, we have our funding gap or our funding analysis. So recognizing that we have our costs set out, we identify what the 10-year funding is going to be over that same period, assuming that our existing funding sources are maintained. So we don't make any changes to your capital contributions from where they're currently at. And we run a scenario which has the OSIF funding allocation and then one without the OSIF funding allocation. And we've done that because the province requires us to look at confirmed funding sources. OSIF is here today, but there's a potential that it could get dwindled down or in worst case scenario would get eliminated. So we wanted to show what the impacts would be under both of those circumstances. What we have in the benchmark gap is and this is about replacing all your assets at the end of its life and doing all the needs as identified in your needs studies and your OSIM reports. So this is your best case asset management scenario. And it requires a 7% dedicated tax or increase in your tax levy, I should say, in 2025. And that requires about $1.5 million increase in your capital spending in 2026. And then every year from there over the 10-year period, an additional increase of $1.5 million. So it is a compounding effect, which means it's a pretty drastic, element in terms of your capital funding solutions here. And then we have the next one is without OSIF. We are now picking up the difference on the OSIF funding. So it's an 8% increase in your taxes on year one, and then which equates to about $1.7 million each year going forward. And I only put the tax levy increase on year one because it's most representative of today's standard. Every year as your levy changes, that number would slightly adjust. But the dollar amount that's included there of the 1.7 million, that's the increase in true dollars that you need to do, plus inflation every year. So that's what we call as the benchmark gap. And I'll take a moment to describe. We make some adjustments to the benchmark gap to reflect what the needs are to tie to the levels of services that we're looking at. There's a notion that I would suggest that if you were to increase your spending to the tune of the 8 or the 7% that we had on the previous slide, we might see service levels increase beyond what we've shown in terms of what our targets are. So what we do is we scale back the expenditure side of the equation to reflect or try to balance with the levels of services that we've got. So the capital calculated needs on the left was representative that feeds into the cost analysis from the previous slide. The bar on the right is the calculated needs to meet the proposed level of service. So we see that they're discounted by about 40%. And we made adjustments to each of the different cost centers or assets within them to reflect where we feel that the requirements are going to be in order to meet our proposed level of services that we have. So what that does is it changes the funding gap a little bit. And because we're trying to establish a financing strategy that is directly tied to the proposed levels of services, we have an alternative here. And the alternative is to look at what the financing strategy is to meet the targets that we've actually set out. And in this instance, we see that the funding need is reduced from the level that we had, and it's about $90 million over the 10-year period. So lower than the 130 some odd million dollars that I showed in the previous slide, which we feel is a closer representation to our proposed level of service framework. You'll see that the funding side of things is exactly the same because under either scenario, our funding is going to be similar, including OSIF. The difference here is now our gap is reduced. So our gap that we're trying to solve for is a $20 million gap in order to meet that proposed level of service over a 10-year period. And what that means is our tax levy requirements in order to meet that proposed level of services is also reduced from the benchmark gap. And in this instance, with the OSIF funding, we're looking at around a 2% increase in 2025, so about a $440,000 increase in tax-supported capital contributions. And then if we remove OSIF from the equation, our capital contributions would need to increase, and we're at about $650,000 a year. Again, that would be a $650,000 increase in whatever you're currently spending in asset management in 26, and then a further $650 after that, and so on. So again, a compounded increase, but that would bridge that gap in order to meet the proposed level of service. Part of what's driving that is we see that, as I mentioned, the PCI of our roads, although we're maintaining the 65, there's also a continued deterioration of your existing roads. And if we don't continue to spend, then that PCI would continue to drop further beyond that number that we have. So that's on the tax supported side. Part of this is also looking at rate funded assets, which are overall in a fairly good news story. There was a rate study done last year, which kind of looked at the overall operating and capital needs in order to manage your system and to move the municipality closer to full cost recovery, which identified annual increases around 3% each year, in which the municipality will continue to the extent possible to follow the rate study recommendations. So that kind of also trickles down to the asset management plan in order to meet your levels of service to continue to follow through with the rate study requirements that we had. So most of what we talked about here is obviously related to your tax supported infrastructure. And there's obviously different approaches to close that gap. And certainly there's the quantitative side of things to increase your capital contributions from your tax levy. The other one is obviously to continue to lobby and seek support from upper levels of government in order to help bridge that gap. And sometimes it's a combination of both, where you continue to increase on your own, but also help with them to kind of help support some of the differences. Through this, there'll be continued improved data quality, and you have to look at assessing the risk and your levels of service. And if there's kind of change in the direction here in terms of how you're increasing your capital contributions or your spending towards it, you might have to look at reviewing your levels of service that we have at the outputs, where that might change as a result of the funding needs. So if we're not increasing to the tune that we've identified, we may have to make concessions on the level of service side of things. So just to kind of cap off the presentation here, in terms of some of our next steps here, there's the process here to develop the actual AMP report with our accompanying financing strategy. The final council approval kind of obviously targeted prior to July 1 of 2025, being June 9th is a current date that we're looking to do that. And then going forward from there, there's the continual kind of monitoring of your results and your asset management program. And one of the things that I've certainly been stressing to a lot of municipalities is that this is really the first time that municipalities have looked at the level of services in conjunction with the financing strategy. So part of this is going to be to understand what the level of services are, how you're spending your money, and how you're going to track every year how you're progressing on that program. And if your funding strategy that you're doing is either getting towards your level of services, moving away from it, so which kind of direction are we going with it, and that will help you prompt you every year through your reports to make adjustments to the level of service or the financing strategy. And I think that's an important element here where municipalities have to kind of keep on this, and this isn't kind of the end of the asset management road. I think this is really just kind of the start of something that's potentially larger over the longer term. So that's the end of my lengthy presentation. I will take any questions or comments from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mirabella. Sobering, a little bit sobering, but also I think it's important to recognize that we're not alone in these challenges. I believe that many other municipalities have been raising a flag about the infrastructure gap deficit. We've seen letters in our consent agendas to that end, calling on the province to support and invest. And yet I would argue, and I'm not in an argumentative mood, but I would argue that we should not rely on a strategy of other senior levels of government solving this problem for us, that we're going to have to face some of this music as much as our local taxpayers may not care for it. I also will offer a brief comment that recently I had the opportunity to travel in Northern Ontario and saw service levels there that clearly had deteriorated to states that were actually unconscionable to me. I couldn't believe it. So clearly some choices are available to us, but those choices can lead to some really bad outcomes, including in my case, broken sway bars on my car. Let's have questions and first comments about Mr. Mirabella's report and the work that staff has done, coordinated by Leanne and Ashton as her supervisor. Colleagues, questions, comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I'll just pick up on the comment that you made regarding funding and OSIF specifically. And frankly, I don't want to be too alarmist, but I'll just say concerned about the fact that the province of Ontario requires, as part of this planning process, to have what we anticipate for OSIF, continued OSIF involvement, and then with it being faded out and so on. It's quite telling that the province is actually apparently being transparent about this, is that it's not necessarily in it for the long term. And this isn't just funding, increasing funding, which most municipalities are asking for. This is about a continuation of funding. Now, 5 years ago, I was on their website. They had invested some $1 billion and so on for 423 municipalities, which sounds like a lot, but frankly, when we're talking about assets of this magnitude, it's a drop in the bucket. So I don't disagree with Mayor Todd that certainly municipalities and our taxpayers have to pick up the tab for this. But frankly, whether it's our taxpayer as the paying their provincial taxes or whether it's the taxpayer paying the municipal taxes, it's still the same person, and they have no more money for the left or right pocket that's paying for it. So I am concerned about that. We're doing what is required of the province, but I would just raise the eyebrow and concern that this is something that is frankly not in our best interests as a municipality. Lastly, in my point, if I may, Mr. Mayor, on page 180 in our agenda package anyway, and it may be for our staff specifically to look at our percentage of water customers that we've got that have full firefighting protection, and perhaps Leanne could talk about this. I believe the number that is listed here is we're at 58% that have hydrant flow in our urban serviced area. And my understanding is that that's Listowel specifically has hydrants available to it. And we are working towards extending the water pressure in Atwood so that we would be looking at, hopefully with MTO approval at some point in the future, extending municipal water to throughout Atwood. But more specifically then to have flows adequate for fire protection purposes. And presumably that's going to impact our percentages which is, I think, beyond the increase with growth and available servicing. I think that's my point.
So through the mayor, so I'll address 2 points on there. So we'll start with the last one in reverse order here. So we put in the proposed level of service to be plus growth servicing, but if, as you put Atwood on board, if it falls within the 10-year period, then that number would certainly go up. But then if it falls outside the 10-year, then that's why we just kept it conservative to be with growth, and we can modify that with the plus growth or any connections through the Atwood servicing program, just to make it clear that there's potential for others to come online within the 10-year period outside of traditional growth. Um, can I address the OSIF question you had as well? Is that okay?
Please.
Yes, through the mayor. So the OSIF scenario that we had, that's a Hemson scenario, so I just want to be clear about that. That's not necessarily a nod from the province to test it in different ways. We put it in. We get a lot of mixed reviews from communities on what's going to happen with OSIF, and also just because the allocations, they're changed by up or down by 15% every year based on the replacement value templates that municipalities complete. So there is some confusion around how long that money might stay in, and I think their municipal perspective is they absolutely need it to continue to manage their infrastructure. So we just wanted to test it, what would happen if it was pulled, or if it would have maintained in there, just to give some order of magnitude within the results. So that is just an additional scenario that we ran for the staff, but again, no necessarily a direction from the province of what might happen there, if that provides some clarity. Yeah. Yeah.
Prepare for the dark,
That's right.
rainy days, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the message here. All right. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Johnston?
Just a couple comments. Just pleased with the condition of our assets. You know, it's nice to see that so many of them are very good or good. So that's good. Means I think we and mostly staff have been doing a good job. And every budget we've done here, we talk about our funding gap on infrastructure, and actually, it's interesting now that we have a number, you know, that we can look at and say this is what we need. And you know, I'm much more pleased with your second numbers than the first numbers of the 8 to 9%. That's not real saleable, but that 2 and 3% to start bridging that gap. We've sat here for every year saying we need to bridge the gap, but now it's nice to have a number. So I'm pleased that we have a target out there that we can aim for.
Thank you. And I think, I mean, we've seen these letters cross our consent agendas over time of calls to the province to try to improve the wholeness of municipalities by with regards to the infrastructure gap. Perhaps now that we actually have some numbers, we can create a more powerful letter on behalf of this council and community to the province, indicating that we think they need to step into this with some more sincerity. Let's put it that way. So let's hold that as an idea, perhaps an action item that we could undertake. Anyone else with questions or comments? Yeah, that 7 or 8%. Yeah, that didn't look happy, buddy. I'm sorry. Who's our budget chair? What do the strong mayor powers give me? Headaches. That's what it is. All right. Anyone else before we look at the resolution here? With regards to the financial strategy that is going to accompany the asset management plan when it's brought to council, you talked in your presentation and you showed numbers that implied that we're starting this year, 2025. We're already several months into 2025. We passed a budget the first meeting of January. Is that a hint to us that we will face a budget amendment proposal or need for a budget amendment to try to get on it now?
So the analysis that we've done is in 2025 dollars and using 2025 budget. So the first year the increase would be for 2026.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I understood when that extra tax increase might hit. Okay. Everyone ready for the resolution then? Is it okay to proceed? Let's have a look at it. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the 2025 Asset Management Plan results and proposed levels of service considerations report for information purposes, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth endorses the draft proposed levels of service as outlined in Appendix A of the report for all municipal assets for the 2025 Asset Management Plan. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Discussion or debate? I'm not seeing any, so I think we can have the vote. Thank you. Councillor Anstett records a manual in favor vote. And that is unanimously carried. Mr. Mirabella, thanks for making your way up to Listowel once again. Generally, I'm glad to see you. Tonight, not so sure. Always a pleasure, he says, just so that our viewers are noting his reaction to my comments. All right, thank you. Let's turn to item 9.2.2. Staff have responded to a request for report by council related to the timing of property tax payments. The interest by council relates to whether there is a possibility of enhancing affordability through scheduling changes. And a report has been brought forward by North Perth Tax Collector Amanda Ewing and Treasurer Ashton Romani. Mr. Romani is at the podium, so it's his turn to present.
Thank you, Mayor Kaseberg, and good evening, members of council. So as mentioned, this report follows council's direction to investigate whether adjustments to our monthly pre-authorized payment plans could help reduce the impact ratepayers experience when payments increase during the final 4 months of the year. So to provide some context, interim tax bills are currently mailed in February with due dates in March and June. Final tax bills are issued in August with due dates of September and November. These billing due dates are believed to have been unchanged for at least 60 years. It's quite surprising when you look through that. The monthly PAP program is structured around this cycle, so taxpayers enrolled in this plan make equal payments from January to August based on the prior year's taxes, and then once the final tax bill is issued in August, their monthly payment plan amount is recalculated and often increases over the final 4 months of the year. For some households, this does create some financial strain. So through our review, we noted that approximately only 21% of all tax accounts are enrolled in the monthly PAP program, while the remaining 79% pay on or before the regular scheduled due dates through other methods. So to allow earlier recalculations and smooth out the monthly payments that are scheduled for customers, we would need to advance the tax billing due dates and mailing dates associated. So as outlined in the report, the key change would be issuing the final tax bill in July, with the first installment due at the end of that same month. For median assessed households, shifting the scheduled due dates 2 months earlier could reduce the final 4 payments by approximately $19 through that shift. However, it's important to note that bringing the due date forward may also have a cash flow impacts for the majority of other tax account holders, particularly for those who do not use the monthly pre-authorized payment plans and rely on their traditional due dates. In addition, the monthly municipality is preparing a future replacement of our enterprise resource planning software, which includes our property tax system. With that migration, there may be additional functionality and billing options that could address some of the issues concerned. Given the long-standing nature of our current billing structure and its modest benefits that would benefit these subset of ratepayers, staff feel it would be prudent to defer these changes until after the ARP transition. This would avoid also introducing back-to-back changes in billing potentially. While the report also outlines some minor operational efficiencies that come part of the potential change, these are not considered materially significant. So as again mentioned, staff are not recommending changes at this point in time and have provided this report for information purposes only. However, should council wish to proceed with the tax adjustments, communication strategy would need to be developed and an update to the tax collection policy would also be required. And thank you to be able to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Romani. Colleagues, questions, first comments? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution which the effect of which will put this on the table, that we won't be making any immediate adjustments as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report titled Property Tax Due Date Review for Information Purposes. Councillor Richardson, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Johnston.
Just a quick comment that Ashton, I like the recommendation that, you know, we don't need to change it for 1 out of 5. And man, you want to talk about rocking a boat. Some of these, you know, people that have paid on the last day of September for the last 60 years. If we now tell them it's going to be in July, they're going to have a heart attack. So I think your recommendation is awesome, and I fully support it. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, duly moved and seconded. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Let's move to item 9.2.3. Thank you, Mr. Romani. North Perth Interim Clerk Sarah Carter brings forward a report requested during our last meeting of council about the implications of the grant of strong mayor powers to the municipality of North Perth. There are a number of additional responsibilities that have been created in this unexpected grant of authority by the province for both the mayor and staff. That is, in essence, the conclusion of the report. Information here is still fairly early on in this shift. It is likely to evolve as we work towards frameworks to support the change. Let's hear from Clerk Carter.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you to members of council. In response to the staff report request at the April 29th council meeting, and as a follow-up to the May 1st correspondence from the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, advising that strong mayor powers have been expanded to an additional 170 Ontario municipalities, including North Perth. The included staff report has been prepared for council's information. As stated in previous correspondence, it's the provincial government's expectation that the municipalities will use the strong mayor powers to support provincial priorities that will help the province and local communities grow. Provincial priorities are outlined in Reg 580/2022. The staff report includes a summary of staff's current interpretation of the strong mayor legislation. So some of our interpretation is mayoral decisions and directions must be in writing unless it's protected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The clerk will circulate all mayoral decisions and directions to council via email and be posted publicly on the municipal website. The mayor has the power to direct municipal staff to undertake research, provide advice, and carry out duties related to any authority or power granted to the mayor as part of this legislation. The mayor can hire or dismiss the CAO. This is a power that can be delegated by the mayor to all of council. The mayor has the authority to determine the organizational structure of the municipality, which includes employment powers to hire and dismiss the head of any organization unit. And there is an exception to this part for statutory municipal officers, which were listed in the report. This is another power that can be delegated by the mayor to council or the CAO. The mayor has the authority to establish or dissolve committees, appoint chairs and vice chairs, and assign functions to those committees. For the purpose of this legislation, a committee is considered a committee that's entirely comprised of council members. The mayor has the authority to introduce matters for council's consideration at a meeting, regardless of our procedure bylaw. The mayor has the authority to introduce a bylaw for council's consideration at a council meeting, again, regardless of the procedure bylaw. If the mayor is of the opinion that all or part of a bylaw could potentially interfere with prescribed provincial priorities, the mayor has the power to veto that bylaw. The mayor can veto or give notice of intention to consider veto within 2 days of passing the bylaw. That notice is given to the clerk and must include the reasons for the intention to consider the veto. The clerk must give notice to council and the public by the next business day. A notice of intention to consider vetoing a bylaw opens a prescribed 14-day window within which the mayor may either approve the bylaw or in writing can say that it is going to be vetoed. Following the issuance of a mayoral decision to veto a bylaw, council then has a 21-day window where they can consider overriding the veto. To override a veto, a 2/3 supermajority vote is required. The mayor is allowed to vote in that override the veto vote and is counted as part of council as a whole. Section 284.11.4 of the Municipal Act requires that the mayor approve in writing all bylaws passed by council within 2 days. The purpose of this approval is to differentiate between bylaws which have received mayoral approval and those which have been vetoed or those that are being considered to be vetoed. Under strong mayor powers, the municipal budget is no longer approved through the traditional council process. Instead, it becomes the mayor's budget. The mayor is required to submit a proposed budget to council, the clerk, and the public no later than February 1st each year. If a budget is not submitted by that date, the municipality defaults to the traditional council-led budget process. At this time, staff are anticipating that additional information regarding budget process will come back at a later meeting. And with that, I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions you might have.
Don't shoot any messengers. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. We just had a governance meeting today, and to me, this could require some additional governance work, creating some policy perhaps to support, what would happen if this or that, or, all of this comes into play. Would you anticipate doing that, Ms. Carter?
Through Mayor Kiesenberg, it is fairly early in the stages, so staff are still considering possible implications of what this legislation will do. We anticipate having quite a few more meetings amongst staff and some meetings with Mayor Kiesenberg to determine what the path forward might look like.
Who's next? Councillor Johnston.
Some of this stuff is dumb. Sorry. Let's go to the budget part. So Ashton's been awesome, and our budget committee and other people helping have been great at getting a budget early. So now, if we want to do a budget the way we do it, we have to wait till after February 1st and hope you don't submit a budget. Is that how I read that? Or can we do our work behind the scenes and just adopt it on the 2nd of February? But it just, some of this stuff, I'm sorry, it just seems anti-democracy.
Did you wish to respond, Clerk Carter?
In regards to budget, I might defer to our treasurer.
Thank you. Mr. Romani, what do you think?
Mayor Kiesenberg, attended various info sessions that have popped up over the past couple of weeks. There are ways around it to still have budget approved in a timely manner. There's different combinations of other municipalities that currently have strong mayor powers or historically already had it, sorry. So there are certainly options we're looking at. I think hopefully over the coming weeks we'll come up with a plan and also confer with the mayor as well on what the best plan action moving forward is.
I can assert that I do not want to disrupt our current process. I think it works extremely efficiently and effectively, and so I'm sort of letting staff know, let's find the skirt-arounds here so that we don't have to change what we've been doing so well during all of my tenure as mayor, because I think it works really well. So I reassure my colleagues that's part of what lies ahead is meetings to figure out whether we can do that overtly or whether we need to use a little subtlety. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Ernst.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Thanks, Sarah, for the report. I know this is a lot of work and it's not close to being done. Just the question I had on the bylaw piece, vetoing. It lists in there the provincial priorities, so housing, transit, infrastructure are listed. Are those the only three? Or is there more that just aren't listed? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. In a lot of the webinars that we have sat through, they have mentioned that the legislation is pretty open to interpretation. So my understanding is that the mayor has to provide a reason based on the provincial priorities.
Okay. Anyone else with questions or comments? Councillor Rothman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thank you, Sarah and staff, for the report. It's very difficult to have conversation about what something means when it seems that not everybody understands exactly what we have before us. And if anyone needs to know the difficulty with having a strong leader of an organization, they need to look no further than the President of the United States, which frankly goes off and does things that his party and its legislators have no idea. And the administration has no idea what's going on. To turn our back on years of legislative processes that have been established and have worked, as we discussed well over this period of time, and putting in place items which have no, as I know and understand, no legislative basis currently. The whole vetoing of bylaws, which is unprecedented in terms of the realities that we have in our time. I know staff are aware of reports that some mayors that have been granted strong mayor powers are looking to some elements of the proposed legislation, it's not proposed, legislation that mayors have the ability to delegate that authority through to all council if they so choose, and whether that is the basis upon which the strong mayor chooses to implement those powers, it may very well address the concerns that have been expressed around this council table, and perhaps can be the way forward. But I, like others here, am extremely concerned with what the province has put before us, which no one here has asked for. And as I understand, most municipalities in Ontario have not asked for this. Nevertheless, here we are, and I think we can certainly spend our time doing other very important things as well. But I think it behooves us to take this time and our staff to understand what is placed before us and work our way through best as this council sees for North Perth and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Blazek is next.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I agree with the statement that Councillor Johnson made that this does seem very anti-democratic, and I think that that's a sentiment around a lot of this table. And while we can appreciate our current mayor's statement that he has no interest in these powers, that does not mean that 2026 is an election year, and another mayor moving forward may feel differently. And so I think it is incredibly important that once staff has an opportunity to fully digest this information and figure out what exactly this looks like for North Perth, that it would be prudent for us to provide some public information. I think that taxpayers deserve to know what it is that they're voting for and what that mayor's powers are prior to the election in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have the resolution. I think this is the beginning of training, essentially. There will be more that will be revealed. The experience of cities that have had this power for 18 months or so, obviously, is quite varied. Actually, that's what I've discovered in my reading of how mayors are issuing decisions and stuff. There's all kinds of things that seem different from place to place. So there isn't a standard that's been established, which is really unfortunate. But why we're here and doing this is kind of unfortunate too. And I agree with the sentiments generally expressed by all of you. The resolution is as follows. The Council of Municipality of North Perth receives the report entitled Provincial Expansion of Strong Mayor Powers for Information. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any further discussion, debate, or comments? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. I do want council to know that I will in near future issue early mayoral directions or decisions that will delegate the various HR authorities described in the power list to this council or to the CAO where permitted. That will come in the next week or two. All right, next up, two reports from the Operations Department is item 9.3. Let's look at item 9.3.1. Council is asked to consider promulgating an agreement with the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority related to water and erosion control infrastructure in our community. This new form of agreement will stipulate how maintenance and repair of water and erosion control infrastructure will be handled moving forward. This appears to be quite relevant in light of some findings that some work needs to be done on the Listowel Aqueduct. So you can see we have before us Matt Ropp, our Manager of Operations, who will give us some of the details of this proposed engagement with the Conservation Authority. Mr. Ropp, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. The Maitland Valley Conservation Board passed a motion back in 2018 directing their staff to enter a cost share agreement with Municipality North Perth for a water and erosion control infrastructure, dubbed the acronym WICI structure. The Listowel conduit meets the definitions of WICI structure as it provides flood control for downtown Listowel. Water is conveyed through our conduit in open and closed channels from the Davison Avenue Bridge to the former CNR Rail Bridge. Current practice has the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority providing minor maintenance and offering North Perth support when seeking funding opportunities for repair and maintenance of the conduit. The proposed agreement and cost share policy will formalize how maintenance and repair work is funded for the Listowel conduit. Major repairs and technical studies will be 50-50 cost share between North Perth and Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, where funding opportunities are available from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. If no funding opportunities are available from the province, North Perth would be responsible for 100% of the costs. Preventive maintenance and minor repair responsibilities will be a collaborative effort as defined in the cost share policy between Maitland Valley Conservation and North Perth moving forward. Staff are recommending that council enters into and executes a cost sharing agreement between the municipality and Maitland Valley Conservation Authority regarding flooding and erosion control infrastructure. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Ropp. Colleagues? It's interesting. I wasn't really all that aware myself that we had various agreements in place historically, so now I know as we bring them forward. Anyone with comments or questions at this point? Right, we have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth enters into and executes a cost-sharing agreement between the Municipality of North Perth and the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority regarding flooding and erosion control infrastructure. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And Councillor Anstett records a manual in favor vote, and with that, that is carried. Thank you. As item 9.3.2 and pursuant to a procurement process undertaken properly, in accordance with our bylaw and policy, staff is recommending the award of a contract for hot mix asphalt paving services for line 88, Road 176 and Road 146 to Cox Construction Limited of Guelph, Ontario. We may not need Mr. Ropp's support. Let's see if there are any questions. Colleagues, do you have any questions before we consider the resolution? I'm not seeing any, so let's have the resolution as follows. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP-5640-25T hot mix pavement line 88, Road 176 and Road 146 contract to Cox Construction Limited of Guelph, Ontario in the amount up to $877,798.88, excluding taxes. Moved by Councillor Nordum, second by Councillor Andreessen. Discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Matt, thanks very much for the report. I think all of council are very pleased to see the tender come in significantly below our budgeted amount. Is this tender sort of a foretaste of things to come in terms of reduced costs, or is this just an anomaly? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Rothwell, through the mayor. So the $1.1 million budget for asphalt projects this summer also included stormwater works for the hamlet of Wallaceville. So there's approximately $150,000 worth of internal capital works that will be completed within Wallaceville to go enhance the drainage to the area. So it's still bringing us under budget. But yes, you are correct. We have seen more competitive pricing, I would say, this spring. Not sure why, but we haven't seen cost overruns like we've seen in previous years. It could be the nature of the competitiveness or the amount of work that's currently out to tender, are all different factors. But yeah, we're not seeing quite the high cost overruns. Just, as you saw by the numbers in the report, they're fairly tight, as in the difference between the contractors, which we always like to see. Tells us our tender package was accurate and they all understood the scope of work, and the contractors put forth their best price.
I don't think he's filing a complaint. That's not what I'm hearing. Councillor Duncan?
Thanks. Through you, Mayor. Matt, do you know off the top of your head how many kilometers of pavement this is?
Good question. I know 176 is around 5 kilometers. And 88 is the last block from Wallaceville out to Wellington County 9. So I believe that's around 2 kilometers, a mile and a quarter.
Okay, thank you. Then these numbers are definitely much better than we've seen the past couple of years.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Norton?
Thanks for the report. Yeah, just confirming, so all of Wallaceville's getting done this year then for hot mix?
Correct, yeah.
Happy people. Happy people. All right, let's have a look. We've got the resolution ready. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, let's move to item 10. Does any member of council wish to ask for a report from staff or a committee? Councillor Duncan?
Thank you. Just seeing as we have Matt Ropp here, if he could just maybe give us a quick verbal update on timing on the cement box culvert replacement on line 75.
Through the mayor, so the box culvert replacement has gone out for a request for proposal for our consultant. So we're approximately at 50% detailed design, and we're anticipating to be ready for a tender in the next month or so for a fall construction. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else with a request for a report? Councillor Rothwell?
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and through you to Matt. I suspect Matt could give us a quick response in terms of anticipated time for calcium being spread on our gravel roads.
Now, which Matt does he want to answer this question? Mr. Ropp?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. Yeah, so maintenance gravel did start approximately 2.5 weeks ago, and we also started the calcium application last week. So efforts are ongoing. Calcium's in high demand, so we're only receiving about two truckloads per day to cover our roads. So we're ongoing, and we're also getting into the drier part of the season right now. We're having to apply water before calcium just to make it activate faster and more effectively.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just wondering if staff could maybe post information on our social media and otherwise to let our public know that it's coming. But there are issues that we're having in terms of, just as you said, getting our share of only 2 loads. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with quick requests here, or complex requests for that matter? All right. For item 11, we have no items of correspondence for our consideration further to our consent agenda this evening. Let's do the bylaws, and let's sort of get ourselves to the closed session, I think, and then we can take a break at that point for a brief bit. So let's have a look here. We have 4 bylaws that have been presented to us tonight for our consideration. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. The copies of them are available. Before I read the resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of them for a more fulsome consideration or an individual or recorded vote? Not seeing any of that, so let's consider it. That the following bylaws are hereby passed. 47-2025 being a bylaw to adopt the current estimates and to establish tax rates for the year 2025 for general purposes and stormwater management area and industrial business improvement area. 48-2025 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a transfer payment agreement with His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure. 49-2025 being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control block 72 44M-74, 44R-6324 part 1 through 10. And 50-2025 being a bylaw to amend the Municipality of North Perth Listal Ward Official Plan, Amendment Number 40. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Duncan, thank you. Councillor Nora will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on these? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion? Seeing a no there, let's turn to item 14 on our agenda. Are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Anyone wishing to make an announcement? I'm not seeing any expression of interest there. Oh, sure. Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Todd. I do not wish to make an announcement. However, I do wish to declare pecuniary interest on item 15 and the confirmatory bylaw item 7. I have already informed the clerk's office and confirmed that it does not impact quorum, so there can still be a closed session discussion. I volunteer with an organization that is part of that discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Blazek. Let's turn to item 15 on our agenda. For this, this is about having a closed session meeting of council. You've seen that a number of us have dropped like flies from parts of that discussion, as the saying goes, and Councillor Duncan is going to have to assist us in chairing that session of the meeting. I'm going to read the resolution that will allow us to have that meeting as follows. The council proceeds in camera at 8:43 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding Plan 44M-10, Part Block 39 as RP 44R 3986, Parts 2 and 3. It's like reading the phone book. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, and seconded by Councillor Johnston. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. This council is in recess until, for the purposes of holding a closed session meeting at this point. We'll ask those who are not invited to attend the closed session meeting to exit the chambers. We will close the doors, change the audiovisual inputs. I will begin that meeting, but then surrender the chair at the appropriate moment. And I think that gets us to where we need to be. Let's take a 10-minute break.
Hear anything, Matt?
2, 3. Don't forget my mic on.
We're good to go. Regarding item 16 on our agenda, council did discuss the matter identified in their enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of council and did give staff direction pertaining to the matter that was considered, the essence of which will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. So moving along, council has a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I'll now read the enabling resolution for our confirmatory bylaw, number 51, 2025. Bylaw 51, 2025 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous council actions of the Council of Municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Ansett. All those in favor? Oh, you gotta, we can do a 3-scribe? Okay.
Neil's gonna try.
All the rooms switch with somebody.
Okay, that's carried. We'll invite the rest of council back in and I'll give the chair back to the mayor.
Okay, so the only resolution remaining in closed session then is a resolution to adjourn and to resume our open council meeting. Has that been taken care of, or? All right, thank you. So the resolution as follows: that in-camera session is now adjourned at 9:44. Oh, that one's done? Well, now. All right, sounds good. Let me move to that then. All right, it would appear that we've done all our business. I missed it, some of it, but now I know. Council's corrected me on this one. So our final resolution of the evening is as follows: the council meeting adjourns at 9:44 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, May 26, 2025 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. It's not a debatable motion. Let's have that vote. Okay, we have manual votes from Councillor Rothwell, Councillor Blazik, and Councillor Andreessen. We have all the votes accounted for. That is carried. Thank you. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, May 26th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Until that time, this council is adjourned.